This will be the first April 24th of your presidency and the first opportunity to follow through on your promise to recognize the genocide and your decades of leadership on this issue. On behalf of hundreds of thousands of Armenian Americans, the children and grandchildren, great-grandchildren of genocide survivors, I ask you, keep that promise. Recognize the Armenian Genocide.
And Representative Schiff is a leading advocate for the Armenian cause in Congress and the community. There's a picture of him right front and center in one of the recent marches, the March for Justice. He joins us this morning to discuss all of this. Welcome and good morning to you, sir. Good to see you.
Good morning. Thank you.
So, you know, every year or when there is a presidential race, candidates make promises. Those promises are not fulfilled once they're in office because something like a genocide is politicized. Just yesterday, Turkey came out to say that if the United States does recognize the Armenian genocide, it would further harm ties. Your reaction to that statement, and also what is the current relationship between Turkey and the United States?
Well, Turkey threatens retaliation every time this anniversary comes up and every time the Congress and the president consider recognition. We did recognize the genocide in Congress in the last session. It's a bill I carried for 19 years, and we got it passed, and we got it passed overwhelmingly. So as the president considers this week, he has the strong bipartisan support of Congress to finally recognize the genocide. And what we have seen in the past when Turkey has threatened other nations, they threaten, they cajole, but at the end of the day, when countries do the right thing and they recognize the genocide, Turkey moves on. And that will happen here too. The president has committed to doing this, but you're right, Araksya, he wouldn't be the first president to make that campaign commitment and not follow through with it. But I am hoping and praying and talking to all the cabinet members I can that he will, in fact, recognize the genocide. And finally, in terms of U.S.-Turkish relations, they have been going south for a long time as Turkey has increasingly become more autocratic, drifted away from the West and the United States and more towards Russia and Iran. So we shouldn't be carrying their water on genocide under any circumstances. But also Turkey, if our relationship with Turkey depends on our complicity in genocide denial, it's not much of a relationship.
You know, I often hear, and I'm sure you do too, that this is something that happened so long ago. It's a problem of the past. But now, perhaps more so than ever, it is relevant today. Why does this matter now?
Well, you're absolutely right. We saw just months ago a terrible war waged by Turkey and Azerbaijan against the Armenian enclave of Artsakh, where people were murdered and forced to flee their homes. And during this, Turkey's Erdogan was speaking positively about the genocide. And so for the Armenian community and human rights activists everywhere, there is a real present day threat of genocide. And of course, we have seen other genocidal campaigns go on in the present day. You've got the campaign against the Uyghurs in China, in Darfur and elsewhere. So this is a very contemporary issue. And if we're not going to recognize the genocide that happened a century ago, what does that say about our willingness to stand up and confront genocide happening today?
The importance of accountability. You brought up Artsakh, so let's talk about that for a moment, because it has been months since that war ended. And just a few days ago, here in Los Angeles, as well as cities around the world and in the country, communities did come together and they demanded the release of prisoners of war. Estimated 200 plus prisoners of war still being held by Azerbaijan, and we're not even talking about the abuses and mistreatment. You've been very vocal about this as well.
I have. I've introduced a resolution calling for their immediate return, but also to look into potential war crimes that have been committed. The murder of POWs, the desecration of the bodies of POWs. But Azerbaijan needs to turn over those POWs immediately. And the United States certainly shouldn't be supporting a nation like Azerbaijan with military aid that's going to commit aggression against its neighbors and that's going to detain, in violation of international law, POWs. So we need to raise the decibel level on this to make sure that those POWs are returned to their families.
And for those who don't know, the U.S. Department provides $100 million to Azerbaijan in assistance, and this is U.S. tax dollars.
Well, that's right. And there's a law that Congress passed that says we shouldn't be providing that kind of money to nations that are engaged in human rights abuses like Azerbaijan. Now, that provision has been waived in the past, waived on the grounds of national security. I think that's a terrible decision. I hope that this administration won't follow the practice of prior administrations because we have seen Azerbaijan abuse the military support that we give it. And given all their petroleum wealth, they don't need U.S. tax dollars to begin with.
And I just called you President Schiff. Congressman Adam Schiff, if you can for a moment, talk about your connection and your roots and why you have taken on the Armenian Genocide cause.
Well, I represent a very large and vibrant Armenian community that I've gotten to know over the decades. And I've sat down in the homes of survivors of the genocide, heard their stories about their forced marches through the deserts of Syria, the loss of entire parts of their family, sometimes all of their family members. And I understand how deeply personal this is. As a member of the Jewish community, I understand the pain of Holocaust denial, and genocide denial is very much in the same family. So this is personal to me, it's personal to my constituents, and I'm hoping that it will be personal to the President of the United States.
And currently there is on change.org a campaign to get signatures to present to the President and his administration that, yes, it is genocide. Congressman Schiff, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. And if by any chance you do decide to run for office in the near future, remember there was some foreshadowing that happened here. Great to see you. Take care.
Thank you.